You are not poor. You are just eating wrong. Your shopping cart is not innocent. Supermarkets today do not make you hungry. They take away your right to choose. The cart looks fuller. The receipt gets longer, but the meals do not sustain you for long. You finish eating and still feel tired, still feel hungry, and still spend money. Rising prices are only the surface. The real problem lies in what you put into your cart each week. Many items look healthy, are nicely packaged, carry smart labels, but do not work for your body. The uncomfortable truth is this: most food in the supermarket does not exist to help you live better. It exists to move money faster. It makes you think you are choosing when in reality you are being guided. But to eat enough, live steadily, and avoid panic as prices keep climbing, you do not need the whole supermarket. You only need a very small group of foods, items that are durable, flexible, and do not betray you. If you are over 50, this message is not meant to scare you. It does only one thing: it gives you back control, starting with your daily meals. Potatoes were once labeled as a cause of weight gain, but science shows the opposite. In studies comparing fullness after meals, potatoes rank at the top, outperforming pasta, rice, bread, and many other expensive foods. Not because they are high in calories, but because they satisfy the body. When you eat potatoes, the brain receives the signal that energy needs have been met. Unconscious hunger, the thing that makes you open the cupboard looking for snacks, drops significantly. Potatoes are rich in potassium, a mineral that the heart and blood pressure depend on directly. Most people over 50 are deficient in potassium, yet they look for it in expensive supplements while potatoes sit right on supermarket shelves at a cheap and stable price. They also provide vitamin C, fiber, and contain no natural fat or cholesterol. More importantly, potatoes are durable. A bag of potatoes can sit quietly in a corner of the kitchen for weeks, even months if stored properly, without creating pressure to eat them immediately and without triggering guilt from fear of spoilage. A simple meal of potatoes, beans, and frozen vegetables can nourish the body far more steadily than elaborate, expensive meals that leave you empty. When you stay full longer, you do not spend money unconsciously. When energy is stable, you are not pulled into the cycle of snacking, fatigue, and hunger. Potatoes do not need a healthy label. They do not need attractive images. They do only one thing: keep you steady. And for people over 50, that steadiness is worth more than any eating trend. Canned tuna is often seen as an emergency food, but in reality, it is one of the rare system-independent protein sources still present in the modern kitchen. One small can of tuna provides an amount of protein comparable to an expensive piece of fresh fish, but without requiring ice-fast transport or immediate consumption. While fresh fish depends entirely on electricity, refrigerators, and fragile cold chains, canned tuna needs only a dry shelf and time. Omega-3 in tuna is not a decorative detail. It is directly tied to the brain, memory, and the ability to focus, things that quietly decline with age. Many people look for omega-3 in expensive supplements while it already sits inside a cheap metal can with no advertising and no images. Tuna also does not demand cooking skills. No cooking required, no heat control. Open the lid, and it is ready. For people over 50, that simplicity is not laziness, but risk reduction. More importantly, canned tuna does not create pressure. You do not worry that leaving it too long will spoil it. You do not have to plan your meals around it. When electricity becomes unstable, when transportation slows, when fresh food prices fluctuate, tuna stays put and does exactly what it is meant to do. It helps you get enough protein, stay mentally clear, and remain calm enough to avoid rushed decisions. Dried beans are avoided by many people for one very small reason: they need soaking. But let us be honest for a moment. What is the real inconvenience? Spending a few minutes preparing them the night before, or being startled every time you shop because meat prices have jumped again. Dried beans are not inconvenient. They simply do not cater to the rushed habits we have grown used to for many years. A small, inexpensive bag of dried beans, once cooked, can become many days of meals. It provides real protein, high fiber, and supports cardiovascular health in ways that many expensive medications can only partially achieve. The fiber in beans helps control blood sugar and cholesterol, something many people over 50 struggle with while looking for solutions in places more complicated than necessary. There is a simple logic that earlier generations understood very well. When you combine beans and rice, you get complete protein without meat, no nutrient deficiency, no energy shortage, no dependence on expensive and volatile protein sources. This is not a vegetarian trend nor an ideological choice. It is soft survival logic, eating enough, eating sustainably, and eating in a way that lets you sleep peacefully when prices change. Rice is not food for the poor. Rice is food for people who understand systems. While many so-called premium foods last only a few days before spoiling, a bag of rice can sit quietly in a corner of the house for decades if stored properly. No electricity needed, no cold chain, no urgent transport. Rice exists quietly, but with great consistency. Rice does not stand out on supermarket shelves. It is not labeled a superfood, but it never betrays you. When food prices fluctuate, when meat and fish become expensive, rice is what helps stretch meals intelligently. A small portion of meat when paired with rice can feed an entire family. Not through fake fullness, but through real energy. Unlike high-sugar foods that create a brief spike in alertness followed by a crash, rice provides stable energy. The body uses it gradually. The brain is not pulled up and then dropped. For people over 50, that stability matters more than any advertising about dieting or fat burning. Rice also has an advantage that very few people mention. It pairs with everything: beans, vegetables, eggs, fish, meat. It is not picky. It does not demand. There is a reason more than half the world has relied on rice for generations, not because they lack choices, but because they chose the most durable one. Peanut butter is not just for children. In reality, it is one of the most stable and affordable brain-feeding fat sources in the modern kitchen. Just 1 to 2 small spoonfuls provide protein, healthy fats, and enough energy to keep you full, far longer than many expensive snack foods that only create a brief rush and leave you hungry again very quickly. The fat in peanut butter releases energy slowly, helping the brain function steadily and extending the feeling of fullness. For people over 50, this is no longer about dieting, but about staying mentally clear and avoiding unconscious hunger that leads to snacking, fatigue, and unnecessary spending. More importantly, peanut butter is system independent. It does not require refrigeration. It does not need to be eaten immediately. It can sit calmly on a shelf for months without creating pressure. A spoonful of peanut butter in the morning, or added to oats or bread, is enough to keep energy stable for hours. It is not flashy. It does not need advertising. It does only one thing: feed the brain, keep you full, and help you slow down in a world that constantly pushes you to move faster. Canned tomatoes are often labeled as less fresh, as if they are a second-rate choice in the supermarket. But science shows the opposite. When tomatoes are cooked during the canning process, the level of lycopene, a powerful antioxidant linked to reduced cancer risk and cardiovascular support, increases significantly compared to fresh tomatoes. That means, in many cases, canned tomatoes are not only more convenient, but actually nourish the body better. Good food is not always the freshest food, but the most stable food. Stable in price, stable in quality, and stable in how it fits into your daily life. 1 can of canned tomatoes can turn into many meals. Pasta sauce today, soup tomorrow, a base for stew a few days later. You do not have to eat it immediately. You do not need to plan your cooking schedule around it. It sits quietly in the cabinet, creating no pressure and no sense of waste. That is the real value of canned tomatoes. Not flashy, no superfood label, just a straightforward ingredient that helps you cook with more calm, manage food spending better, and nourish the body steadily. Carrots are one of the cheapest foods in the supermarket, yet they nourish the body more effectively than many expensive items. The orange color of carrots comes from beta-carotene, which is converted into vitamin A in the body, directly supporting eyesight and the immune system. What many people overlook is this. Beta-carotene is absorbed optimally only when fat is present. That means raw carrots are good, but carrots cooked with olive oil or a bit of butter are what truly unlock their full value. Another very practical detail. Carrots are extremely durable. They can sit in the refrigerator for weeks without spoiling, without creating pressure to use them quickly. Chicken thighs are often seen as a less refined choice compared to chicken breast. But in a real-life kitchen, they are the most livable cut of meat. Chicken thighs are cheaper, more flavorful, and most importantly, very hard to ruin. When overcooked, chicken breast becomes dry and tough. Chicken thighs do not. The natural fat in the meat acts like insurance, keeping it tender and easy to eat even when you are distracted. Chicken thighs are also extremely flexible. Roast them today, stir-fry them tomorrow, shred them for soup or porridge a few days later. The bones are not waste. They can be used to make broth, extending the value of the meal one more round. Onions and garlic are not secondary seasonings. They are the foundation. Onions add depth to a dish, turning inexpensive ingredients into meals with character. Garlic does quieter work, supporting cardiovascular health, boosting immunity, and helping the body fight inflammation naturally. But the greatest value of onions and garlic is not nutrition. It is behavior. When these two are missing, cheap food becomes bland very quickly. And then what happens? You do not go back to processed food because you like it. You go back because you are tired, because the brain needs strong flavor, needs that satisfying sensation that onions and garlic normally provide. Frozen vegetables are different from fresh ones. They are harvested and frozen almost immediately, retaining nutrients better, spoiling less, and sending less money into the trash. Eating healthy is not just about choosing what looks good, but choosing what works consistently. Frozen vegetables do not need washing. They do not need cutting. They do not force you to stare at brown spots and wonder if this is still edible. They are not fancy, but they are honest. And in an era where everything is polished to sell faster, that honesty is worth more than any image on a supermarket shelf. Oats do not promise an explosive morning. They quietly do one thing that very few foods still do. Keep you steady. High-sugar cereals give you 30 minutes of fireworks-like alertness, then pull you into a free fall. Oats are different. They move slowly. They spread energy across the entire morning, so you do not need rescue from a second coffee or a mid-morning snack. When energy arrives steadily, you are not pushed to seek more sugar, more salt, or something else just to feel less tired. For people over 50, this is no longer about appearance. It is about whether the mind stays clear until noon, whether emotions remain stable enough to avoid pointless irritation, and whether decisions stay calm enough to avoid unconscious spending. Bananas are one of the rare fruits that do not need refrigeration, packaging, or immediate consumption after purchase. They age over time, and each stage serves a different purpose. Green bananas are high in resistant starch and support digestion. Ripe bananas provide quick energy and are easy to eat. Bananas with brown spots are sweeter, ideal for cooking or blending without needing added sugar. Bananas are rich in potassium, a mineral directly tied to heart function and blood pressure. But the greatest value of bananas is that they do not create stress. They do not spoil immediately. They do not make you feel guilty for forgetting to eat them. Olive oil is not something to display on a shelf. It is a fat meant for daily use. Unlike many refined oils, olive oil works in harmony with the body. It supports cardiovascular health, reduces inflammation, and helps improve the absorption of many nutrients found in vegetables. Using one stable oil simplifies your kitchen. No need to hesitate between too many bottles. No need to think which oil to use for which dish. One good bottle of olive oil can be used for cooking, mixing, and finishing meals. For older people, this simplicity is not laziness. It is reducing daily decision load. Milk is one of the few foods that provides calcium, protein, and vitamin D at the same time in a form that is easy to absorb. The real strength of milk, especially powdered milk, is durability. It can sit in the kitchen for months without depending on a constant cold chain. You use it when needed without pressure to consume it every single day. Milk quietly does its job, keeping the skeletal structure strong enough for you to continue living independently. And that independence is worth more than any nutrition label. Whole grain bread is often grouped together with white bread, and that is a serious mistake. The difference is not in the color of the crust, but in how the body responds after eating. White bread causes blood sugar to spike quickly and then crash hard, bringing fatigue and hunger back very soon. Whole grain bread does not. Because it retains the bran and fiber, it moves more slowly through the body, keeping energy stable and fullness lasting longer. One slice of whole grain bread with eggs, peanut butter, or canned fish can keep you steady until noon without needing extra rescue. If you look back, the foods just discussed all share one thing in common. They are not flashy. They do not chase trends. They do not need to persuade you with labels or complicated promises. They do only one thing: nourish the body in a stable and durable way. Eating today is no longer about eating to feel full. It is about eating so you are not afraid. Not afraid of rising prices, not afraid of shortages, not afraid of having to calculate tensely every time you go to the supermarket. When your meals are built on foods that truly work, you begin to slow down, feel calmer, and spend money more deliberately. This message does not tell you to change everything immediately. Just the next time you go to the supermarket, look at your cart and ask yourself one very simple question. Does this item nourish me, or does it only make me feel reassured for a moment? Just changing that question will change your choices. Control does not sit on the shelf. It sits in your choices every day.